Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
In today's podcast, we're covering the film The House with a Clock in Its Walls. Yeah, this is a movie that exists.
And I never had heard of it, but of course Rascal has. Now, this film focuses on a young boy who recently lost his parents and is now living with his eccentric uncle, played by Jack Black, who he never has met.
Mm-hmm.
Now, things seem normal at first until he finds out the secrets of this home.
Yes. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and click notification updates on future podcasts and Little Pause videos.
Now, this was a different role for Jack Black. You kind of are reminded of Goosebumps. It has a Goosebumps feel.
Yeah.
But it's still a different role because in Goosebumps, he is playing the Arthur. And in here, he's actually a warlock.
Yes.
Who has a beard like the character from Vox Machina.
Yes. So, for here, this is actually based off a novel written decades ago and decided now to actually adapt it, which is pretty interesting because you can kind of tell this book was, it's not really dated, but you can tell it's like the type of story you don't really see written anymore, where it's more like a period piece, because it was taking place in the, I think, the 1950s, right? So
1955.
Yeah, 1955. So you can tell they had to make everything look like it was taking place in that time period still, with the music and the clothes and the cars and everything, and they really tried to make it as accurate as they could. So this was a little different because you hadn't really seen something like this in a while for kids, because it's usually reserved for films for adults.
Right. It is very well done, because I always look to see if they didn't get something right. I think I found one thing that wasn't, but other than that, they really were great about the setting and the clothing. And there was one piece of clothing they had on that it was like, okay, that's a piece of clothing from the 80s, and I guess it got by, or they didn't think anyone would notice. But you know, from what we've seen in movies, it seemed accurate. Neither of us were here in the 50s, but from what we've seen in movies, it seems accurate. It seems like they did a great job. As far as the language, you could tell at times they were using, and you kept pointing out, they were using modern language.
Yes, and which seems to happen in a lot of these movies when they adapt them. Maybe for the time the books were written, they were using dialogue and lingo that no one uses anymore, so they had to update it so people will be looking at, what are you talking about, and it won't feel like it's automatically dated.
Now, Kate Blanchett is also in here. She plays his uncle's friend, and her backstory doesn't come along until later, and you find out really what happened with her, and how her story and experience is really an intricate part of the story unfolding and it coming to a conclusion as well. All I kept thinking when I saw her, and she has a wand, I kept thinking, okay, she's supposed to be Star Butterfly. Star
she
Butterfly.
Just turned into Moon.
So, the kid turns up at his uncle's door. Is that correct, or he picks him up?
Actually, yeah, he picks him up.
And he wasn't really sure he wanted to do it. It's his sister's son.
Yes.
And as we mentioned, his parents are both. And his uncle wasn't sure if he should take him. He has no experience with kids. He has no children. Never been married. He doesn't have a house conducive to rearing a child, and you don't learn that until later. And at first, it seems like everything is normal, and he's just going to rear his nephew, and it's gonna be uneventful. Well, it's called The House with the Clock in Its Walls for a reason. And that's when the story starts to unfold.
And at first it starts going the little route of boy has no friends, no one wants him on the team, and he's the weird kid and all that, which, you know, is standard now for movies. He makes, well, you think he makes one friend at school until it comes up later, and I honestly thought that kid was going to become a villain. Yeah, I guess he was, just not the type of villain I thought he would be. And it kind of goes through that, but then you find he gets really is friends with, his uncle and his uncle's friends, so he does end up getting friends and people to be closer to, because it seems like he's more, instead of being more distant towards people like he usually goes, he actually just wants to be closer to somebody because he misses his parents, so he's really wants to be with somebody because of that void.
So different things start happening in the house, and you find out the house is alive. Once the nephew finds out, he tells him he's a warlock. He says train him. He says no. He begs and pleads, and he finally says yes. Okay, he'll train him. So he gives them a ton of books to read. And at this point is when you find out that this kid really has like a didactic memory. He can remember everything that he reads and sees. He's really brilliant. He knows the definitions of words. He reads the dictionary for fun. And his uncle is really impressed.
Yeah.
So what really starts the story going is one night he hears a clock ticking.
Right.
And can't find out where the clock noise is coming from.
Right. And as he goes further on in the house, he sees some things look like it's moving on their own. Versus thinking it was somebody in the house, or one kid told him that his uncle might be an axe killer, and it's like, why does that just randomly come up out of you? And he actually has an axe, so he thought it was true, but it's not. And he finds out the chairs are moving. The chair is kind of like a dog. They have like a lion statue that moves around. The books can move on their own. The windows open. Everything of the house is alive. It was like the spooky version of the Encanto house.
Now, as standard for these type of movies, there is a villain. And there is a villain who wants to destroy the world.
Of course,
in this one. And as that backstory unfolds, it gets really more interesting. And we don't want to spoil any of that for you. So what we can tell you is this. Lots of action, lots of mystery, drama, suspense. Yes, they do some magic in here since he's a warlock. And I'm not sure if the friend is a witch or not. They never call her that, but she has a wand, so she's something.
Yeah, and she said she was more powerful than him, so I guess in a way, yes.
So some things start to happen. They have to figure things out. And the main goal is to find the clock.
Yes.
And again, that's what sets off the rest of this movie and this adventure. So we will tell you there is a happy ending.
Yes.
And you really wish by the end of the movie that there was a sequel.
Yeah, pretty much.
You didn't think so at first, but by the time you get to the end, it's like,
because the way it ends, there really is not a cliffhanger. It's like the day is saved and everything, so there really is not a cliffhanger in the end for something to come up, unless there is already a sequel to the book, and it just was like they're all their own standalone movies, but can still be sequels. Unless something like that, surprisingly it ends as if, if it was nothing more after this, you have some kind of conclusion already.
And one of the best parts about this, and shout outs, is to the Goosebumps movie, and in one of the scenes, this dummy falls on the floor, and then Jack Black's character stomps his head and crushes it, and you're like, okay,
that's slapping.
He finally gets me to slapping again.
Yes.
That was a shout out. It was hilarious.
Yes, that was one of the best shout outs, because as you said, there's a lot of Goosebumps vibes in here.
So this is a great movie to watch during Spooktober. It's great to watch this month if you haven't seen it. Since we're close to the end of the month, if you're looking for something to watch on the 31st, this would be a movie we would definitely recommend to you to watch between now and then.
Yes.
The House with the Clock in Its Walls. If you've seen it, let us know what you think in the comments below. Had you heard of it before? Are you familiar with it? If you read the books, let us know.
Yes.
If you haven't, you have to find it. We actually got to see it on demand for free.
Yes.
But it may be available on Prime. You never checked. It may be available on a streaming service. You've never checked. It may be available to buy on Amazon.
Yeah.
We've never checked. But give it a watch if you find it, and let us know what you think in the comments below. We definitely recommend it. It's absolutely worth a watch.
Yes. And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates and weekly videos on your favorite anime series, anime shows, and all things animation, and book adaptations.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much for watching. I'm Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.